Thank you for being here. This is an interesting format for me. I know we started doing it, maybe a couple of years ago or 2 years ago. I always find it fun. And I can see if you're not paying attention. I'll literally see the color change, so I'll know. But that's all right. Today, my name is Jorge Sanchez. I'm the Director of Product Strategy. And with me today is Austin Fatman. He is the Senior Product Strategy Developer. And we're going to be talking about how easy it can be to incorporate AI-driven recommendations into the applications that you build. Now, why recommendations? We all love recommendations. It's a heck of a lot easier to ask someone for advice or to see what other people have done than it is for us to do all the real research it would take for us to do an informed decision. And it's not just about what products to buy, but it's sometimes even as easy as a plumber. Like, what plumber should I use? Are you really going to go and look at all the plumbers in the yellow pages that are servicing your area, look at the permits, see the job, like drive to the places, knock on the door, hey, how was the work done? Probably not. You're going to ask a few folks, right? You're going to get recommendations and use that. We trust them. The collective intelligence that we gather together is something that we inherently trust. We're social animals. And that helps us in a lot of different ways. First of all, it works. Second of all, it saves up time. And the most important part of it is apps, marketers, and everybody is catching on to that fact. You get recommendations every single day, whether it's about what movie to watch next, what product to buy, what loan you should get, what insurance policy you should consider, even things like what is the recommended next best task you should do. Recommendations can help us in a lot of different ways. Case in point, the first thing I did when I got to San Diego, and I don't know how many here did the same, like, you're hungry, where should I eat? There's probably a lot of different restaurants just in the San Diego downtown area, and we probably all went to Yelp to try and find what's a good restaurant where I can find good meals. And in there you can find reviews, you can find what people say, but did you know, for example, that there are nearly 4,000 restaurants in the San Diego area? Probably a lot of them are really good. So it gets to the point where how do you sort through all of those recommendations? Now, before we get more into that, I think we all know why recommendations matter to us. But how can recommendations have a bigger impact in our business, right? Well, first of all, it can drive additional sales. The right recommendation at the right time for the right product can close a sale. Also, it can continue to have a more customer engagement. Keeping them reading just one more article, taking a look at an additional product, is another way to eventually close a sale or drive that additional traffic. And of course, ads, right? Ever since Google started doing targeted ads, it's the number one driver of revenue for them, right? And nobody touches them, and they started doing that. So there's a lot of reasons, right, why recommendations matter. But like I said, sometimes you can still get too many recommendations. How do you sort through 4,000? Let's say that you have 1,000 restaurants that have greater than 4.5 stars with over, 500 reviews. That's still a lot of restaurants to sort through. So that's when things start getting more interesting, right? It's not just about sorting through which ones people recommend the most, but which ones would I go to? What can Yelp do to see, hey, Jorge prefers Asian-style restaurants or Thai, or maybe he prefers sushi, or maybe he prefers Mexican. So how do I sort through the 1,000 that have good reviews to the 10 that Jorge would be interested in? Otherwise, I'll get overwhelmed and keep walking. So too many options are also not good. So personalized recommendations are always better. I'm always impressed when I go to Amazon and they just say, hey, maybe you want to buy that. I'm like, yes, maybe I do want to buy that. One-click purchase, here I go. And then and sometimes it's also a little creepy when I'm looking at, vacations in Cancun. I go into Facebook and suddenly, hey, here's the deal for Cancun, or here's the deal, and I'm like, okay, I'm glad you know me, but this is getting a little too much. But it works, right? Eventually we click on it. Eventually we accept the recommendation. So I think we all know that recommendations are very valuable. Now, there are basically, and I'm oversimplifying a little bit, but there are basically two approaches to making recommendations: a human-based or a human-managed recommendation, and AI-managed. There's, of course, shades of gray in the middle. You might have other assistants and some automation, but let's, for the sake of argument, place them under those two buckets. Now, human-managed basically require subject matter experts. They require concierge-style services. You're also going to have custom business rules. heuristics, right, and rules of thumb. So it might be in some cases that you are the subject matter expert, you know your business, it's not that complicated, you have a specific set of products, you know what they want, you can always make a recommendation. You go to a store, you go to Best Buy, you ask someone, hey, I'm looking for a USB hard drive, they ask you 2 questions and they say, boom, buy this one. That works, that's fine. But is that scalable, right? Do you always have a one-to-one relationship? Do you always have the ability to provide that concierge services? Sometimes maybe you do, other times maybe the hard drive, the products, the catalog changes way too often. Then of course we have the AI managed recommendations. These are based on data. You basically, as with any or many different AI services, you provide data, and the data can be based on multiple things. It might be based on user reviews, it might be based on user interactions, it might be based on a combination of interactions with your catalog. It can be a number of different things. It also leverages deep learning, machine learning. And the advantage of that is that, as with any machine learning, you just give it the data, it'll find the patterns, it'll find, you don't have to basically, it's almost unsupervised learning, and it'll create a model for you. It's easy and fast to retrain, so as your catalog changes and you capture additional information, you can just retrain it again. And it's more and more easier to integrate with your applications, especially if you're using something like our new integration SDK or integration capabilities at Appian. Now, what choice you use and how you implement it depends a lot on the age-old question of time put in, money put in, and value got extracted out. So if you have a like a small shop, or if you have a something like that, you might put in a little bit of effort and you have a human managed one that's perfect. So it's always, you always have to consider, why do I need my recommendation engine? What is the time and effort I have to put into it? And I think what you're going to find is that AI services are becoming more and more, I should say, simpler to use, right? You don't require to you don't need to understand exactly how it works. You only need to understand it. How do I use it? How do I integrate it? Now, before you start in any of these endeavors, you always have to ask yourself, what is it that I'm trying to predict? Am I predicting retail products? Am I predicting types of loans? Am I predicting what car I should offer? Am I predicting what task I should do next? You also have to realize how much data and in what format do I have it, right? Do I even have data? Do I have to start capturing data? Then how frequently does that demand or the usage change? Do I have something that is so dynamic that the data is basically valid for only a few weeks or a few months? Does the data not change often enough? You have to understand how that data works, not because you're a data scientist, just enough to know how to use these services. And then what is the value that you can get out of it if the predictions are good enough? You're never going to get perfect predictions, right? It's the same as forecasting. I remember in college I once read a paper that was about forecasting, and the first sentence read, "This paper is wrong, but I still hope it's useful for you." What he meant is that forecasting is never accurate. You're never going to say, oh, next month I'm going to sell exactly $347,000, and you sell $347,000. However, knowing that helps you prepare for that month, even if you're up or down or you missed it by a few percentage points, right? So this is the same case. How accurate do I need to be before I see the value of that recommendation exceed, for example, just pumping advertising into the likes of Facebooks and such? And how important is personalization? Do you have repeat customers all the time? Do you want to invest in giving personalized recommendations? Am I tracking all the information from these users to do that? Now, just to highlight a little more, talking about human managed recommendations, we talked about these points, right? So you need subject matter experts, concierge style services. I'm not going to completely disregard, but I'm thinking you're here to learn more about the AI ones. So I'm just going to say, hey, be aware that most of the time, the level of effort is high to get started. The level of effort is, for maintenance, it's high as well. Unless the use case is simple, unless you happen to be the subject matter expert, the rules of thumbs that you need to implement come as a second nature to you. In those cases, you might implement some of the stuff, but most of the time, this becomes a problem, right? The moment that starts changing, the moment you start seeing new faces coming in and you don't know what they like, you're gonna have to start, reinventing the rules, hiring subject matter experts, and it's gonna become a problem. And I think that's what a lot of us have faced when trying to do recommendation engines. Now, AI managed recommendations have a lot of different advantages, and like we talked about, what I personally like the most is that they are based on data, not my specific subject matter expertise. I'm going to build the model that becomes the expert just by giving it data. So the real thing is, okay, so let's assume I'm sold. I'm going to use AI services. How do I get started? When I started working on this project, I was looking and researching what recommendation engines are out there. So I started looking at some. I wanted to avoid the ones that require a lot of technical depth or me hiring a very expensive data scientist or any of that stuff. So I wanted to just make it easy, right? So I looked online and I found that Microsoft Azure had a recommendation API. It was in preview mode, but it basically it was completely managed. It's great. So I'm like, excellent. Let me start looking at that. I actually built a couple of models. It was all great. And then in February this year, they said, nope, we're going to change the way we do this. I'm like, okay, let's go back to the whiteboard. Let me take a look at other services. So I looked at TensorFlow. And TensorFlow and Google have a documented approach. Okay, I'm going to tell you how this works and blah, blah, blah. And this one worked on reviews. So it required you to have a large collection of reviews. And I didn't like that as much because, I bought many things. I've been to many restaurants. I've left maybe 3 reviews. So I imagine that many of us will not have hundreds of thousands of review points to kind of like build a recommendation engine. But I say, okay, I'm not going to completely discard it. I'm going to keep taking a look into it. Then I started looking at what I needed to understand, right? I needed to recap combinatorial mathematics and understand how to make sure that I understand the relevant recommendations and the ones that are not as relevant. And I'm like, okay, the more I read about this, the more I try to understand this, I'm just already confused. And if I'm confused, our users are going to be confused. It's probably not the right approach. Kudos for trying that. If you can do it, more power to you, but I'm going to keep looking. So then I came across this smart adaptive recommendation algorithm. This one is very simple. It works 2 different ways. It gives you item-to-item recommendations. By that I mean it takes a look at the item that you're looking at, the attributes of that item, and it uses that information to recommend similar items. But it also does personalized recommendations, whereas it takes also a notice of what events, what usage, what interactions you've had with that items, with other items, and with us, and combines both to give a personalized recommendation. And I'm like, okay, this is sounding promising. What do I need to start using it? And what I found out is that this only required me to give it a catalog of data, basically what's your product catalog, and user interactions, such as this user interacted with this product in some way, form, or fashion on this date. And if you want extra points, you can even say it was a click, I added it to the car, I removed it to the car, or your own specific values. And I'm like, okay, I feel like that is something, even if I don't have it, I can get that information very quickly. So I started looking more into this, and I figured this is something I can start building. So I built an Azure solution for it. So Microsoft has a recommendation engine solution, and the other thing I really liked is that they do it with a single-click deployment. So if you go to the Microsoft recommendation engine, I'll show it in a little bit, you basically click one button, you deploy it to your Azure portal, and it's ready to start taking requests. You're ready to start training models. You're ready to start training and creating all of these recommendation requests. And this connected system will give you everything you need to actually hit the ground running. So what I like about it, of course, is the initial effort. I'm going to put it as medium, not because it's hard to use, but because you have to have an Azure account already. Now, once you have it, like I said, it's a one-click deployment. Maintenance, I'm going to say, is medium because again, you have to kind of manage that cloud, but the services themselves are very easy. Later, we're going to talk about how we can get those points to the low area. Right, but still, medium and medium is a lot better than human, and I find that to be really nice. So let me, this wouldn't be a dev jam without some actual live demonstrations. So the first thing I want to show you is what data I need in order to train this information. So the data that I use, this is a book catalog. What you're seeing here is the item ID, the book name, the type of item, in this case it's a book, author, and then some features, right? Author, what year it was published, things like that, things that a catalog normally has. And then interactions. In this case, I on purpose chose something that had very little interactions. It basically has a user ID and an item ID. That's all you really need. Of course, the more data you provide, the better it is. So we'll take a look at how the data needs to be structured, but if you add a timestamp, such as the interaction between these users happened on this date, then you'll get additional information such as I'm going to treat the most recent interactions as more relevant than the ones that happened 2 years ago. And then the next level that you can add here is what type of interaction it was, right? Whether it was a click, added, a purchase, so on and so forth. And the more data you give it to the model, the easier it becomes, or the more accurate it becomes, I should say. So I created this application, so it basically extracts, it gives you the book catalog, and what I did here is I put all this information available on a grid alongside the number, I sorted by the number of interactions, not purchases, just interactions in general. So here you see the book name, right, the item ID, and then how many interactions it has. Now, like it said in my PowerPoint, a rule of thumb in order to build a good recommendation engine is that you should have at least 20 interactions per product. So like this one has over 2,000, so I think we're going to get good recommendations. But as you keep going down the catalog and you see something that has less than 20, then you know to trust that a little less. But let's see how this looks like. Let's grab something. Let's look, for example, for a book by Rowling, right, a Harry Potter author. And let's choose a book here. I want to choose a Harry Potter one. Let's choose something that's just barely over that threshold. All right, so I'm going to go here to the book recommendations, and this is just one, it's a very basic example, right? You can use this in many other ways, but here the only thing I'm trying to show is how an end user view might look like. So I click Get Recommendation, and this gives me back the book I selected and some quick recommendations. Now you see some of these recommendations seem accurate, same author, same saga, similar years. Some of them might be like, oh, I wonder what Shopaholic Takes Manhattan has to do with it. But, that's because we chose something that did not have as many interactions. If I go back here, choose one perhaps more popular book from Rowling. Let's take book 5 from the Harry Potter saga, and I get recommendations. You'll immediately get, okay, basically you want to buy all Harry Potter books. Now, there's many more things that you can configure here, but I want to kind of lift the curtains and show you how we got these recommendations. Now, these were all real-time queries calling my recommendation engine using the data I just showed you. So when I go into my Appian Recommendations Engine app, and by the way, if you deploy the plugin, you'll have access to all of these, the connected system and all of that very, very easily. I want to highlight here the connected system first, right? So in order to use the connected system, all you really need, let's see here, maximize that. All you really need to give it is the name, the description, and then there's three pieces of information. This, by the way, if you look for as a recommendation engine, you'll find, whoops, wrong one. You'll find this project right here. And when I talk about the single click, this is what I mean, right? You can read this documentation at your leisure if you want, but essentially you click this button and it'll take you straight into your portal with a confirmation that says, okay, just confirm that you want to deploy it, give me a name, give me all this information, click purchase, and you're done, right? So it's really, really simple to do so. Now, once you do this, you're going to extract some, like a service name, the key that you need, like the primary key and the storage connection key. You click test, and once this is tested and successful, you're ready to start creating integrations. So if I click on use in new integration, it'll give you all the different operations that you can do, right? So if the first thing I want to do is list the models that are available for me, I can call this my sample list models. Click on create. And this is going to open up the integration designer with the list models. There's no parameters, there's nothing. All you have to do is click test request, and it's going to tell you, okay, here are all the models that I have. Here's the model ID, some information about it. Okay, that's great. What if I want to get additional information from some of these models, or one of these models, right? You can say, I want to get model integration. So I'm going to use the pre-trained one I have. And this basically requires that you give it the ID of the model, right? So you can list them, you can find the one you want. And with that ID, you click on test request. And it'll give you details such as the status, some of the parameters that you used, how long it took to train, so on and so forth. But let's get to the good one. What if I want to take that same ID that I had right here and actually use this to get an item-to-item recommendation. In this case, all you have to do is you pass the model ID, the ID of the item that you want to get a recommendation for, and then the number of recommendations that you want to get. Based on this, you click on test request, and this will give you the ID and how accurate the system believes the recommendation is in a 100 scale distribution, right? So for example, this book is the first recommendation because it's the first one right here, then 18, then 17, but all of these are just the item IDs, right? So that's how these map back to the recommendations that we see. So it's that easy to get those recommendations. So now I want to show you how you train a model. So in order to train a model, you need certain information. First, the name of the model that you're going to use. Second, where you want to store the data that you're going to upload. Third, you need to specify the document that contains the catalog information. This is a CSV file, and the format that I showed is like item ID, comma, name, all of those things. And we have additional documentation that you can find on that. Then the usage events, so that this is the document that contains the interactions that have happened. And then whether or not you want to enable user-to-item recommendations, right? Do you want to do personalized or non-personalized recommendations based on that? There are additional configuration options that I've already set to have the defaults that work for a lot of these cases. If you want to play around with them, you're welcome to do so, right? I included the information right here about what does it mean if I want the co-occurrence to be based on user versus timestamp. But basically what that means is, how do I treat the relevance between the interactions between a user and an item? Is it based on the timestamp, like how often they happen or how quickly they happen within the last week, or just about the user? I don't care when they happen, I just want to know that this user interacted with them. That's what this means, for example. And just like that, there's other types, like I need to have at least 6 interactions. If I don't have at least 6 interactions, I'm not going to consider this recommendation to be a good one. There's a couple of other things like that, but basically once you click on test request, and I'll do that right now, I'll say, DevJam sample. I'm going to use my catalog file right here. And usage model. I test my request. And this is going to basically put this into the queue. Now the training, depending on how much data you have, might take anything from a couple of minutes to maybe 20, 30 minutes. However, this will have a status of created. In about 10 minutes, it'll be ready to be used. And that's really how easy it is to start applying them. Now, I want to switch back to the slides here for a second, because one of the funny things about technology, as you all know, is that it keeps evolving. I found this solution. I didn't find actually like a fully managed solution that just gave me APIs and I didn't have to worry about Azure. But between the time I built this recommendation engine and the Google Next conference that happened, like a month ago, more things are coming up. So being aware and just knowing the technology is going to be changing all the time is very, very important. So I want to invite Austin up to the stage. So he's going to talk a little bit about what these fully managed cloud APIs look like and why it's important to keep track of all of that.
All right.
Thanks.
Thank you, Jorge. All right. So whenever we find a solution, like Jorge had mentioned, we always think to ourselves at Appian, okay, this is great. This solves a great problem. But how do we make this even simpler and easy to use? With the Azure solution, you still had to worry about rate limits. I think in Jorge's hands-on lab presentation, they were training, I think, 50-some models, and they got capped. And so the last 20 people in the class couldn't train right away. And so we really had to focus on how do we find a solution that is so easy to use that I don't need to care about scaling up and down my resources or finding insights inside of my data myself. This should all be handled by an external system. So we did find two great solutions. RecomB is something that we came across, as well as the newly announced Recommendations AI from Google. Both of these are great solutions. The Recommendations AI is in private beta right now, but it should be moving into public beta in the next couple of months. But we actually are going to explore why these services are great. So like I had said, when we're looking at our data and, for example, looking at books, we have to boil it down to the format that these recommendation engines understand. So we have to format our product catalog into exact JSON blobs that has all of the insights boiled down into something the machine can understand. But what if we want to leave this up to the machine? Maybe we get millions of new products into our catalog every month, like on Amazon. We would just want to throw unstructured metadata, so maybe the product images. We should have a computer system be able to just recognize what's inside of these images, and maybe just the descriptions or the longevity of the product. The recommendation engine should be able to use these details inside of our recommendations and know that, hey, phones are typically replaced every 2 years, so we can start recommending phones to the users who've previously purchased them 2 years ago. We also want a solution that scales automatically. Like I said, not having to worry to deal with scaling resources up and down. We also don't want to deal with all these training, hyper-tuning. With Jorge's solution, you still had to update your catalog, and then you said to the system, hey, train this, and now predict off of this new model ID. That's a lot of work. Why not just shovel new products at the solution, and it manages all of the hyper-tuning, changing parameters, get that one extra percentage point out of the solution. And I don't even need to worry about the fact that a new model is updated. I just am using the same API and getting new and better results every time. And of course, as with everything in Appian, we want it to be walk-up usable. You really want to focus as a business user on what you want to do, not how you do it. And so we really want to focus on a solution that allows us to select our objective, and then the system takes care of all the details of actually delivering that to us. So with the Google Recommendations AI, we actually get exactly that. We're able to just shovel our product catalog and customer data into the platform through a wide variety of services. Google Cloud Storage, we have a connected system for that, making it extremely easy to move your data into this AI system. You also then are able to select your objective. So if you have a system like, let's say you want to recommend or you want to optimize for your users to continue to use your service so you can continue giving them more ads. Systems like this, like news websites, YouTube, you want to tailor your recommendations to encourage your users to stay on your platform. So serving the right next article or next YouTube video. Or maybe you want to change your recommendations and tailor them such that your customers are giving you the most money possible in every interaction. So you can select in your recommendation AI to be able to optimize for the highest margin or best recommendations that give you the most money per interaction. And then on top of that, you can also set custom business rules. So let's say you do have some insight on top of the recommendation engine, such as the fact that when I'm shopping for an iPhone and I put an iPhone X in my cart, I don't necessarily want to have any duplicates. I don't want to see recommendations for an iPhone 8. I already have an iPhone X. That's a better phone. I'm ready to go and find some cases for my iPhone X to protect it. So you can set custom business rules on top of it in very easy fashion to turn on or off recommendations. If your customers are complaining about it being too creepy, you can turn off personalization. And so you can make it's really easy to just tailor this solution to your business exactly. And of course, this allows us to really focus on bringing that dial down in terms of the effort. In today's day and age, where our products are changing faster and faster, where new markets are opening, and we stopped using Ubers and now are using these electric scooters all over the city, and the demands in the market and the trends change so frequently that you don't want to spend months of research into each trend in every new market and every new customer base that you might have. You want to be able to scale up and quickly and iterate faster and faster so you deliver and capture more than market value, allowing you to stay ahead of your competition. And so that's really what this is all about, is really trying to drive more and more value out of your business, deliver more valuable recommendations that empowers you, which is really what we're all about here at Appian. So we've talked a lot about products, restaurants that you might want to go to, but there's something even more valuable that recommendations can do for you. So chatbots are a great example of a recommendation engine applied towards actions and things that you might want to say back to a user. So if you think about a chatbot, and you boil it down to a very high-level diagram here, you have a user utterance. So a user says something to the chatbot. Let's say I say to the chatbot, I want to order a pizza. The chatbot can then go and use natural language processing to boil that sentence down into a few things. Okay, it recognizes, okay, I want to place an order, and out of the products, I want to buy another pizza. It then matches that to an intent that I've built out, and then connects it to a external solution like Appian to pull in that customer data and really be able to drive a recommendation. Looking through all of my orders, I buy a barbecue chicken pineapple pizza all the time. And so it's able to then pass back to the user saying, hey, Austin, welcome back. Do you want to make another order for that pineapple pizza, barbecue pineapple pizza? And I get to say yes, and I complete my transaction as a happy customer because I was able to get my pizza 5 minutes faster. I didn't have to go through reconfiguring everything, and it surfaced, and I come back as another valuable customer because I know I can complete my transaction more efficiently. And so in Appian's ICC, we actually do have some examples of this. So in our solution, we do use a variety of recommendations. So we have a chatbot to allow agents to be able to provide a recommended response. And we also will surface suggested actions for the agent to take, allowing the agent, rather than sifting through all of the menu options to find the right action that the user is asking about, we just surface it directly into the dashboard, allowing the agent to quickly handle this user's transaction, solving their problem. No one likes to be on support line for hours at a time, just increasing the efficiency, making happier customers, and reducing the cost per interaction in a customer service center. But you might be saying, Austin, it's still a lot of work to be able to drill all that down, make intents, hook those up to actions. There's got to be something simpler. Well, here at Appian, we do like making things simple. So with Google's Dialogflow knowledge base, which is an enterprise feature of their Dialogflow platform, you're actually able to provide all of your corporate knowledge base articles, frequently asked questions, any how-to guides, and just push that all over to Google's Dialogflow. And then Google's Dialogflow will use natural language processing, document understanding APIs, run OCR over all your documents, and build together a solution without you having to train anything at all. And so it will be able to say, hey, a customer calls into your contact center, says, how do I fix this printer? Dialogflow can then hook up into the customer record inside of Appian and say, okay, I see these 3 orders. I can now understand the context that this customer is trying to accomplish. So they are trying to find a solution for this certain printer that they recently made on order. I happen to know everything about that because I have a bunch of PDFs. It can then search through all the PDFs and find a solution to the exact problem the customer is asking about, and not just surface the correct PDF, but actually the blurb inside of that PDF and provide the answer. So it's just amazing just how quickly you can go just from throwing a bunch of PDFs to a system and be able to get unique and accurate answers out of this and surface that to the end user, allowing them to move much quicker to an actual solution. And so we actually do have another demo with the Appian's ICC offering where we've actually pushed a lot of those printer documents. And so a customer's texting into our service. They say that there's a flashing light on their printer, and so Dialogflow has recommended a response. It's now surfaced those support articles, pulled out the meaningful section of the document, and then surfaces that document to the agent so the agent can confirm that it is, in fact, the answer to their problem. The agent can then push back that document to the customer, and the customer can then solve their solution. And so this allows the agent to not have to go through and dig through all the documents, make sure they find the right one, and just have it surface directly to them. Again, just focusing on increasing efficiency without having to do pretty much any work other than just pushing over the knowledge-based documents that your company already has. So what's next? Well, we do already have that Microsoft recommendation engine service as a connected system. As soon as the Google the Google recommendation AI comes out, we're going to, of course, make a connected system to that. And definitely, you want to focus on evaluating your business processes that are right for automation. So you don't just think about recommendations for products. It doesn't have to. You don't need to be Amazon or YouTube or a news organization. You can recommend actions for your agents. You can recommend the next best task to accomplish. So if you have a giant backlog of tasks, you can use recommendation engines to surface the most appropriate action at that time, and really just focus on making your business more efficient and deliver higher value to both your employees as well as your customers. And of course, contact Appian about any for any possible solutions. We always have our eyes on the horizon for what's next, and we're happy also to see what you build. So with that, thank you very much.